Hey there. It's another beautiful day. Let's watch some stuff.
Some people do stupid things. Don't do stupid things. You are about to hear my opinion. Do your own research.
An exciting find was recently made in the Siberian region of Russia. Discovered mistakenly when an excavator smashed into a burial mound experts were sent for, only to make a discovery that could change the history of what we know about Amazon female warriors. Connected to the Pazyryk culture, scientists have been able to now learn of a set of female warriors whose entire lives revolved around protection and warfare. Dating to over 2,500 years old, her grave's materials indicated she was of elite status and confirms famous Greek physician Hippocrates' writings of a famed elite group of female warriors of mounted warfare. One of the most unique findings confirmed was that these women could not marry until they have slain 3 enemies in battle. A life filled with war and protection, these women dedicated themselves to being the most elite around, even earning fabled stories from the Romans who talked about Amazon raids in Western Asia of mounted female warriors that soldiers feared. Could these notable queens, all female warriors of Siberia, be what sparked the fabled tale of Amazon warriors we know today?
How about that? So there's a possibility that the Amazons, the warrior women that we know of today and hear of in Greek mythology, may have actually existed.
Raymond Theodore Robinson, 1910 to 1985, known as the Green Man or Charlie No Face, became a figure of urban legend in western Pennsylvania after a childhood electrical accident severely disfigured him. To avoid causing alarm, Robinson only ventured out at night for long walks along quiet roads. His eerie, nocturnal presence sparked frightening folklore, with locals claiming to see a faceless man who glowed green or possessed strange powers. As he grew older, Robinson began to accept his reputation as a local legend, even engaging with curious onlookers and tourists who sought him out, though he remained a quiet, private man.
That poor guy. He was horribly disfigured and had this weird green glowing thing going on when he went out walking at night. He only walked at night because he didn't want to scare anybody with his disfigurement, and he quickly became like an urban legend or a boogeyman type thing. But dude was real, so he was like a real life urban legend. And poor guy. Well, that sucks.
So this is a video of Austria, 1904. And they are telling us that this entire city was built with just hammer and chisel, and there was no such thing as technology in comparison to what we have now. Yet the architectural designing and ingenuity is mind-blowing. It's something that we don't even replicate in modern times with the technology we have now. It's said that this was after the reset, and many of the people we see in the videos don't even know who they really are, where they came from, or where their descendancy descends from. And this was about placing people in cities and teaching them a new history for a new world reality of which we are now living in. So it said we've been told a false history. And it was for mind control purposes of keeping us living in a false reality so that no one would know the true reality, that we were once a part of a humanity united, living in a utopian type civilization where humanity shared the control of free energy. And these great civilizations were destroyed. And this new world has been built upon the remnants of the past.
Here's where that battle goes on inside of my brain. 1904 wasn't that long ago. I mean, it was a long time ago, but it wasn't that long ago. Yeah, there weren't like electric tools like we have now. But then you think of like the Roman Colosseum, how fantastically built that was, and the statues and stuff that were in it, and maybe they were able to do it, but maybe they weren't. Maybe they had more technology that they're not telling us about in that time. And maybe it was found from a previous civilization that was living here, and there was a mud flood, or there was a great reset. And it's just a battle.
Done here, what was done under the Biden administration. Was it they were saying that everyone who opposed, say, mask mandates or the vaccination of children are domestic violent extremists? Or were they saying that those are opinions often held by domestic violent extremists?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. That when you look at the language of these documents that I've declassified, first, the strategic implementation plan of the Biden administration's designation of potential violent domestic extremists, it really talks about people who may likely turn out to be domestic violent extremists, or those who may likely turn to violence because of these specific quote-unquote ideologies that they hold. And there's a consistent thread through here that these ideologies that they are designating as turning into potentially violent activities or being manifested in violent activities happen to be those of people who were using their First Amendment rights to oppose certain policies of the Biden administration. And while some of the examples that are focused on there have to do with those who opposed the COVID vaccine mandates, those who opposed the mask mandates, parents who were concerned that their children going to school may be forcibly vaccinated with the COVID vaccine without the consent or awareness of parents. The list goes on, but it's not exclusive to this.
I feel like I'm taking a huge risk here talking about these particular marshmallows because my channel has already taken a huge hit because of talking about this marshmallow. Although in this particular clip, it doesn't talk about the efficacy or safety of it, just how people were labeled by a certain administration for not wanting to take it, which is interesting because this just happened.
Hi, everybody. I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr., your HHS Secretary, and I'm here today with NIH Director Dr. Jay Bhattacharya and FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty Makary. I couldn't be more pleased to announce that as of today, the COVID vaccine for healthy children and healthy pregnant women has been removed from the CDC recommended immunization schedule. Last year, the Biden administration urged healthy children to get yet another COVID shot despite the lack of any clinical data to support the repeat booster strategy in children.
That ends today. It's common sense and it's good science.
There's no evidence healthy kids need it today, and most countries have stopped recommending it for children.
We're now one step closer to realizing President Trump's promise to make America healthy again.
Produced by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
There are a lot of people who are just up in arms about this. They're freaking out. And the fact of the matter is, they're not taking it away. They're just no longer recommending it. It is now optional. I mean, it was optional before, but it was highly recommended. And now it's, you don't have to do it. You're going to be just fine as far as, healthy children and pregnant women. It's not highly recommended anymore. So relax. It's okay. If you want to go get all marshmallowed up, go do it. And if you don't want to, don't. And hopefully doctors won't pressure anybody to do it.
There's a chilling pattern hidden in plain sight. In 1898, a writer named Morgan Robertson published a novella called Futility. It told the story of an unsinkable ship called the Titan, the largest vessel of its kind, doomed to sink after hitting an iceberg in the North Atlantic. 14 years later, in 1912, the RMS Titanic met the exact same fate. The similarities are eerie. Both ships were roughly the same size. Both carried too few lifeboats. Both struck an iceberg on a freezing April night. Both sank, taking hundreds to their icy graves. But it gets stranger. In 1935, a ship named the Titanian narrowly avoided hitting an iceberg in the exact same waters, thanks to a lookout named Robert Morgan. Was it just a string of impossible coincidences, or something else? A glitch in the fabric of reality, a warning ignored by history, or proof that some events are destined to repeat? What if our world is shaped by whispers from the past?
That's kind of how we talk about how movies predict the future when something that happens in a movie that's absolutely spectacular comes to fruition. Like they're, telling us about our future because they're time travelers or whatever. But back then they had books as their source of entertainment. So that's pretty cool that some of the book stuff became like a real life thing happening. As far as the Titanian, there was one that saw an iceberg but it was nowhere near where the Titanic went down. So that's kind of a little bit of, let me see if I can do it. Just a bit.
What would happen if you were tickled for 24 hours straight? Historically, tickling has been used as a form of torture in several countries, including ancient China and medieval Europe. Tickling was sometimes used as a punishment or a method to extract confessions during interrogations. After 1 minute of ticking, laughter begins involuntarily but quickly turns uncomfortable as the body tries to resist the constant stimulation, with the tickled person feeling increasingly overwhelmed and unable to control their response. After 1 hour, muscles involved in laughing start to tire and ache, making breathing more difficult as the tickling continues unabated, causing growing discomfort and exhaustion. After 6 hours, skin becomes extremely sensitive and sore, muscles may cramp from prolonged tension, and emotional exhaustion sets in, with the person experiencing waves of laughter mixed with tears and frustration. After 12 hours, physical discomfort intensifies significantly. Emotions fluctuate between laughter and tears as the body struggles to cope with ongoing overstimulation, leading to profound exhaustion and a sense of desperation. After 1 day, severe physical and emotional exhaustion persists, with possible soreness or bruising in tickled areas, and lasting emotional effects like anxiety or distress from the prolonged sensory overload, leaving a deep impact on the person's well-being.
I will never look at tickling a child the same way, ever again.
Ever wondered why you yawn when you're not even tired? Here's a fascinating fact. Yawning is not just a sign of boredom or sleepiness. It's actually your brain's natural air conditioning system. This simple act of opening your mouth wide and taking a deep breath in helps to cool down your brain. But why does your brain need cooling? Well, as your brain works hard throughout the day, it heats up, just like any other machine. A cooler brain operates more efficiently. It enhances alertness and improves focus, allowing you to perform better at tasks that require mental sharpness. The cooling effect of yawning is achieved as the influx of cool air lowers the temperature of the blood flow to the brain, optimizing its function. Interestingly, yawning is contagious, and seeing someone else yawn can trigger your own yawn reflex. This might be an evolutionary trait to help groups of humans synchronize their states of alertness and readiness. So, the next time you find yourself yawning, remember that your brain is just doing a quick reset to keep you sharp and attentive. Isn't it amazing how our bodies have these hidden mechanisms working silently to keep us at our best?
Anybody else? What's crazy is when you do that, it causes the vessels in the roof of your mouth to expand and get more cooled blood to the brain, which is basically what happens when you get a brain freeze, but to like the millionth degree, because those vessels in the roof of your mouth go, and that's what hurts, is they go from contracting to spreading so fast. But yawning is cool.
Project Sanguine was by the US Navy, who set out to build a giant antenna in Wisconsin that could communicate with deep-sea submarines. At the time, they couldn't communicate with the submarines unless they had surfaced, and if someone were to send nukes or some huge attacks, the US would be defenseless because the subs would take time to rise. So the idea was to dig underground cables that would take up 41% of Wisconsin, but would enable communications all over the world. That would never come. However, one of the 3 other projects proposed by the Navy, Project ELF, would actually happen in Wisconsin. And at the time, residents protested, worried that the project could give them cancer or make them a target for the Russians. This was Cold War, red, scary color time. Project ELF would have the same goal as Project Sanguine, and run cables from Wisconsin to Michigan's Upper Peninsula. This operation would come to fruition in 1981. The project would be mirrored by other projects that had the goal of reaching better communications, and Project ELF would ultimately be shut down in 2004. However, some people think that there was an incident that happened with Project ELF, only for the government to completely sweep it under the rug. This incident supposedly happened in Dublin, Wisconsin, which is why the town is missing now. If not that theory, then the other theory is that Project Sanguine did actually happen, and then an incident occurred and then the government came in.
Remember when not too long ago we talked about Dublin, Wisconsin, how it may have disappeared? Maybe that's what it was. They actually started it and did something, and then they're like, oops, something went bad, and then they're like, make it all go away. Just disappear it.
This is proof that we've already been silently replaced, and it's absolutely terrifying. In 1972, classified documents from Project Theta 5 were discovered in an abandoned military facility in Alaska. The project, led by an autonomous division of the Department of Defense, aimed to accelerate human evolution through extreme genetic manipulation. The problem? What came out of it was no longer human. Reports describe creatures with reinforced bone structures, superior intelligence, and a complete lack of empathy. But the most terrifying part was their appearance. They looked almost exactly like us. They learned fast, mimicked emotions, and began to infiltrate. While the world was focused on the Cold War, these beings were quietly placed in strategic positions. In 1994, a former agent named Jonathan Clem told the press that 3 high-ranking government officials were not human. A few days later, he vanished. His apartment was found locked from the inside, with the lights still on, and a single phrase written on the mirror: "We're already here."
Now, this is all allegations and suppositions, but that's how the best conspiracy theories that turn out to be true start. But what were they trying to advance evolution? Like, how were they trying to advance evolution in humans and then use them to replace us? Like, what did they do differently? What if it's like the lizard people, the reptilians, like they're a previous form of us and then they were advancing their evolution to make them look like us to get them out here? That's how they did it. They don't change their shapes, they changed their shapes by advancing their evolution. I don't know, it's just a theory.
DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, is a research and development agency of the United States Department of Defense and is responsible for the development of emerging technologies for use by the military. DARPA had a program called LifeLog, and its goal was exactly that, to log one's entire life. LifeLog aimed to compile a massive electronic database of every activity and relationship a person engages in. This was to include credit card purchases, websites visited, the content of telephone calls and emails sent and received, faxes, postal mail sent and received, instant messages sent and received, books and magazines read, television viewing habits and radio selections, physical locations recorded by wearable GPS sensors, and even biomedical data captured through wearable sensors. The point of collecting all of this data on everyone was to identify preferences, plans, goals, and markers of intentionality. Another of DARPA's goals for LifeLog had a predictive function. It sought to, quote, find meaningful patterns in the timeline to infer the user's routines, habits, and relationships with other people, organizations, places, and objects, and to exploit these patterns to ease its task. Sounds absolutely terrifying, correct? Well, lucky for us, it was shut down February 4th, 2004 over criticism from civil libertarians concerning the privacy implications of such a system. Interestingly though, on that exact same day, February 4th, 2004, a small and little-known website at the time launched called Facebook. No, I'm not joking. Not in the slightest. The exact same day that they shut down LifeLog, Facebook started. Lucky for us though, back in 2020, on Twitter, the official DARPA account came out to reassure people that LifeLog and Facebook have absolutely nothing to do with each other. Even though certain employees of LifeLog went to work at Facebook, it's nothing to worry about. Right. Once you learn all that, it makes you look back at all those news stories that you heard over the years of Facebook selling user information to other companies, and all this stuff seems pretty obvious now. We've been played, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, they shut LifeLog down. I believe that. No, they just found another way to gather more information. Not only that, but we have these things now. And we carry these things. And we all have credit cards with a little chip in them that says what we buy and where. And how often we buy what. And there's cameras everywhere to show where exactly we go all the time. And now we've got AI. Like publicly we have AI because they've had AI for a while, deciphering all of this information. So yeah. No, it hasn't been shut down. I don't believe it has anyway. It's just advanced. Quietly.
In 1995, psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger heard about an interesting case of faux confidence. A man named MacArthur Wheeler had robbed 2 banks and thought he'd get away with it. He smeared lemon juice on his face, thinking it would make him invisible to the bank cameras, because lemon juice is used in invisible ink. He even looked directly at the bank cameras and smiled. And when the police caught him the next day, he was heard muttering, "But I used the juice." Dunning and Kruger wanted to test the phenomena and gave a group of grad students a series of tests. And the students who scored lowest always overestimated how they compared to the rest of the students. And the students in the top percentile rated themselves above average but not in the top. So low-skilled people tend to be overconfident and can't recognize their lack of ability or knowledge. They don't know what they don't know. Highly skilled people, though, are generally aware of the knowledge and skills they're lacking. Or they know what they don't know. Since Dunning and Kruger's original study, over 100 more studies have shown that people display illusory confidence. And if you want to avoid the Dunning-Kruger effect, first ask for feedback and consider it, even if it's hard to hear. Second, always try to keep learning, and I heard a decent way to do that is to follow me. And Dunning and Kruger won the Ig Nobel Psychology Prize for this work in the year 2000.
That reminds me of a story I had heard, and I don't know who originally told this story, but imagine you've passed away, and it's your funeral, right? And everybody around you is just sad, and they're mourning, and they're distressed, and they're upset, and all of that stuff, right? And you don't know it because you are deceased. And that's exactly what it's like when you are stupid. Because you don't know it. You don't know that you're stupid. You don't have the cognitive ability to be like, hey, I'm stupid. But apparently everybody else around you is well aware of this fact. Now, I know I don't know a whole lot of stuff, and I guess you have to know enough to know that you don't know a lot of stuff. But when you're like super confident and you got no clue what's going on, you got no clue that you got no clue what's going on. Which is an interesting effect.
If you're very, very stupid, how can you possibly realize that you're very, very stupid? You'd have to be relatively intelligent to realize how stupid you are. There's a wonderful bit of research by a guy called David Dunning at Cornell, who's a friend of mine, I'm proud to say, who's pointed out that in order to know how good you are at something requires exactly the same skills as it does to be good at that thing in the first place, which means, and this is terribly funny, that if you're absolutely no good at something at all, then you lack exactly the skills that you need to know that you're absolutely no good at it.
I love John Cleese. I'm a huge Monty Python fan. And that was a very good explanation of basically what we just talked about. And I had to find something that broke it down a little bit better because that's pretty much what it is. On that note, I'm calling it for today. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me. If you haven't already, please hit that like button and consider subscribing, and then come on back because we're going to watch some new stuff. I'll say different things, and it's going to be fantastic. Until then, have a wonderful day.